there's so many frauds and so many people who are fake in this industry, and it just irritates the hell out of me because there are a lot of people who call themselves psychic, but they don't actually like step up to the plate and bat. In other words, you have a lot of people who are not willing to put themselves out on a limb or to like start to do it in a public way so people can see. And you know, with an authentic psychic, I don't want to say this because it's kind of, you know, like I have no problem criticizing or ridiculing the people in the psychic industry because, and I call it the spiritual community because it's a spiritual community. Because there are a lot of people, and I wrote an article about this a few months back, that I felt that there were a lot of people in the spiritual community and who are also psychics, who call themselves psychics, who are actually suffering from a mental illness and are not as psychic as they claim to be. And this is something that I've encountered over and over and over again with a lot of the spiritual community. Just because someone calls themselves a spiritual person or a psychic and they say something doesn't mean that they're right, or doesn't mean that they're infallible, or doesn't mean that they know everything. And if someone does call themselves a psychic, they should be willing to put themselves out there in the public and actually show that they are psychic. And, you know, it's not an easy thing to do. And for no one, it's not going to be easy, because even myself, when I started to do this publicly and I started to put myself out there in public and read for people, do mediumship stuff. And it was not an easy thing for me to do. I was scared, and I still get very anxious and scared. Not scared, but anxious. I get anxious before my sessions, but it's a different kind of anxiety. It's more based on the energy building and me like being prepped to be able to go into this. So sometimes I have to kind of take a few minutes before I get on to the live, because I start to feel my heart beating faster and I start to feel like this close-in feeling. And then once I start doing it, I'm fine, and it works, you know, the way it's supposed to, for the most part. You know, every now and then I may have an off day or a day where I'm not really as like specific as I would like to be, because I try to be as specific as possible. But you should be able to do it and prove it over and over and over again if this is something that you possess. But it's not like I was able to do this from the get-go. I had to practice doing this, and I had to force myself to do this even though I didn't want to. And in the beginning, you know, it's funny because I used to do, when I started doing the lives, I was only doing just like psychic readings where I was only just reading the future, because I was like, I don't, you know, the future, you have to wait a little whiles. And I knew that I could tune in and sense the future. But with the mediumship stuff, that was a little bit harder. It was a little more complicated for me. And so I was avoiding doing that in the beginning when I was doing the lives. Now I'm like, to hell with it. Like, if I'm a psychic and I'm a medium, I should be able to prove it, y'all. So let me get on here. Let me try to prove it, you know. But that's not why I do it. I do it to help y'all, or to just pass the messages on. But that's what it should be, right? That's what it should be about. So people who call themselves this, they should be prepared to be in public, or to put themselves on the line to be able to show that they can do this. If they're not willing to do that, either it's one of two things: they're too scared and they need to force themselves out of their comfort zone because they're going to have to do it at some point, or they're just a fraud and they know that they're going to be they're going to be caught. And so it's just tricky. It's just tricky with the psychic industry. But a psychic, an authentic, true psychic, should be willing to admit when they're wrong, or when they've gotten something wrong, and they haven't been accurate. Because we are not infallible. We don't know everything. We don't see everything, which is why I don't know why people think that. We can only sense detail, and then we have to make a judgment call. When we're talking to spirits, we can only share what they give us, and then our job is to figure out what they're trying to say and be very specific, or very, very focused on how that's going to come across, so that it gets the point across, or the message is received. And the person should be able to validate that. So it just depends on the psychic, but that's what we should be able to do.